What up, my Math 7 people? Lesson 6.1 and 6.2 Day 2 notes. Alright, these are all about word problems. For each one of these word problems, you're going to do 4 things. You are going to have a variable, so we always need to define a variable. The next thing that you're going to do is we are going to set up an equation. It's huge in setting up our solving equations. Then obviously you want to solve. So variable, set up, solve. And then the last thing we always are going to need, not necessarily on notes, but we're going to have a sentence. I'm just going to abbreviate that. So variable, setup, solve, sentence. It's always going to be a 4-step thing. You are going to have to show me all of those steps every single time in order to get full credit. So this first one, it says, example 1, an angelfish can grow up to be 12 inches long. Fantastic. So angelfish, not angle, is 12 inches long. We're going to go ahead and underline that because I know that that's our important information from that first sentence. Then it says, if the angelfish is, so that's a huge, should be a red flag by now. Is stands for that equals sign. So what that's saying is our angelfish equals. So we already know the angelfish is 12 inches. So I know right now I have 12 and equals. But then it says 8.5 inches longer than a clownfish. How long is the clownfish? So that is what I don't know. So we're going to use just X to represent the clownfish length. So go ahead with me. Clownfish length, or you could also say the length of the clownfish. Does not matter. Just make sure you're not just writing clownfish. So the length of the clownfish, it says that angelfish is, so 12 equals, we already have that, and then it's 8.5 inches longer than a clownfish. So the clownfish is what I don't know, so I have X, but then the other obviously important info is that it's 8.5 inches longer than that clownfish, so I'm going to add 8.5 inches to that. Could I switch those around because the community property? Sure. However, it says 8.5 inches longer than the clownfish, which means the clownfish has to go first. All right, once you get that started, I like to go ahead and draw my line down that equal sign. We want to isolate that X. So the only thing we must do here is we need to subtract 8.5 from both sides, 8.5. So then my final answer here, I still have X on this right side. But then when I take 12 minus 8.5, and we can also show that work over here because remember, still no calculators. Think of it kind of like $12. That sometimes helps me. Minus $8.50 or 8.5. Would I necessarily need this last zero? No, you can get rid of that. But like I said, sometimes just thinking money seems to resonate a little bit better with people. So then here this becomes 11, so 10, which means my final answer here is 3.5. So I get 3.5. However, we talked about last section, that day 1 notes, that the final answer has to be with that X first. So we're going to rewrite this as X equals 3.5. So what that means in our sentence, based on our variable definition, it just says the clownfish length. Therefore, our sentence would say the clownfish is 3.5 inches with a period at the end. Now, we're not always necessarily going to write a sentence, especially because these are just our notes. However, so that you could see it with a label, I went ahead and showed it to us. Example 2. So a pair of running shoes costs $85. This is $42 less than a pair of jeans. Find the cost of the pair of jeans. So what do I not know? Again, we always start with that variable. I don't know the cost of the jeans. So again, we're going to use, you can use any variable you would like. I just get in a really bad habit of using X, but if you'd like to use J for jeans, sure. Just like I tell my kids, avoid using the letter T because T looks a lot like a plus sign. Same thing with S. S looks a lot like the number 5. So I would just stick to X, or you can use whatever variable you would like. So that's going to be the jeans cost, or the cost of the jeans. Once you have a variable definition, hopefully you spell the word cost a little bit better than that. There you go. You start to dissect that word problem. So a pair of jeans, the running shoes, cost $85. Then it says this is, so therefore right now what I have is 85 equals. This is $42 less than the pair of jeans. So $42 less than means that has to go at the end, minus $42, but it's less than that cost of the jeans that we already have. So again, $42 has to go at the end because it's $42 less than something else. The something else is our unknown. It's our X, or our jeans cost. Once we get there, we go ahead and just solve out our equation. So to isolate the X, I know that I want to do the opposite of subtracting 42, which means I'm going to add 42 on both sides, and notice whatever I do to one side, I do to the other, just like we've been doing, because this over here results in a 0, which is why X is now isolated. It's all by itself. Then when I add these two together, I end up with 127, which means I need to then flip it around because of the commutative property. So x equals 127. Now you need to also interpret what that means. So what that means is that the cost of the jeans, so the jeans cost is $127. Notice again I have a label with a period at the end of our sentence and a capital letter at the beginning. All right, moving right along into example 3 from Mr. Heavey. His car can travel 19 miles per gallon of gas. So for winter break, he is planning on driving to St. Louis, which is about 536 miles round trip. So from there, to get there and to go back, the total is 536. So how many gallons of gas will he need to make this trip? So again, what do we not know? Well, we don't know gallons of gas. We don't know how many that is. So we're going to use, again, I'm going to mix it up. This is living life on the edge over here. I'm going to use G as gallons of gas, or number of gallons. Gallons of gas. So that's what I don't know. So again, let's underline some important info. So I know that his car can travel 19 miles per gallon. So like per 1 gallon, it goes 19 miles. But then also I know that my total trip I'm planning is this 536 miles. Okay, so I know if it's 19 miles per gallon, per, hopefully that gives you like a red flag. Again, those kind of clue words. Per is using the operation multiplication. So I know that I'm taking 19 times the number of gallons, which I don't know. So therefore I'm going to use 19 times G, or just use 19G. And I know that whole thing has to equal our total amount of 536 miles. So again, how I found that out is 19 miles per gallon, but I want to figure out how many gallons I'm going to use. So I need to set that equal to 536. Draw my line down the middle. Now I want to isolate again this G, so I know that this operation in between 19 and G is multiplication. So the opposite operation of multiplication, or the inverse operation of multiplication, is division. So I'm going to show division on both sides, so divide by 19. And I do not know 536 divided by 19 off the top of my head, so I am going to have to show a little bit of work, which is totally okay. So my work here, I'm doing 19 and 53, because I obviously know 19 doesn't go into 5. I know that 19 goes into 53 2 times. So then 2 times 19 gives us 38. Then when I subtract those things out, I end up with, take one here, have 13, I have 15. So then I bring down my 6. So how many times does 19 go into 156? Again, if you need to show a little bit of work out here on the side, sure, go ahead and show that. I know that there are a lot of you that show this. They should 19, and then 19 more than that is 38, and then 19 more than that is 57, 19 more than that is 76, 19 more than that is 95, 19 more than that is 114, 19 more than that is 133, and 19 more than that is 152. Oh, so there we go. I found it. So this is how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 times, which means that I know this needs to be 8 because 152. Subtract those two things out, and I get a remainder of 4. Which means that I can continue going if needed. I could have a decimal. I could bring down my 0, and I could keep going. Or I can also just stop here because it says how many gallons of gas will we need. And I know that Mr. Heavey will need, and is it going to be 28 gallons? Or will we need to round up to 29 gallons? Hopefully when you ask yourself that question, you know that, well, obviously 28 itself is not going to get Mr. Heavey all the way to St. Louis and back. So Mr. Heavey will need 29 total gallons to get to St. Louis and back. All right, hopefully that makes sense of why I said 29 as opposed to 28. If you did say 28, you would need to continue out and solve for that decimal. But if you just go ahead and round it up to 29, we know that he'll for sure get to St. Louis and back and also have a little bit remainder. All right, let's look at the back. Alrighty, last example, and then you're actually going to try 2 on your own. So example 4, it says Team Glacier teachers, they went out to eat, and to save time, they wanted to split the bill evenly among the 4 of them. Then it says write an equation to find the total cost if each of them ended up paying $13.83. So looking at that, I know the information that I'm missing is the total cost. So I'm going to use C for total cost. Again, look at me stepping outside of the box. So total cost, I know that I'm going to split the bill among the 4 of them, and it's going to end up being $13.83. So if I'm splitting the bill, I know that I'm taking the total cost, and I'm dividing it by the 4 Team Glacier teachers, and it's going to equal them each paying $13.83. So once I get that set up, I always look back up and double check and be like, okay, it's split. Yes, I know I'm dividing. I'm splitting by 4. I know my total cost. I'm taking the cost. I'm dividing it by 4 to equal that $18.30. I am good to go. So I'm right now currently have C divided by 4. I know the opposite or the inverse operation of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. So when I multiply both sides by 4, I end up with $13.83, and I'm going to multiply by 4. So I'm going to do this quick math over here. 32, 33, 12 plus 3 more is 15, 5. Therefore, our total here is going to be C equals, and it's 55 and 32 hundredths. So then when I quickly write a sentence, we would say the total bill was $55.32. Notice that I do have a dollar symbol there, and I also have a period at the end of my sentence. All right, so go ahead and pause the video, and there are 2 you-try questions, but we're actually going to work one at a time. So right now I want you to pause. I want you to define a variable, set it up, solve it, get a sentence for number 1. Once you get that, then go ahead and you'll hit play. That way you can kind of check it as you go, because I don't want you working both of these questions, possibly having that potential of getting them both wrong, and then really hurting our confidence. So we're going to work one at a time. Go ahead and pause and find those 4 things, and then hit play. Alrighty, so hopefully you have the variable that's the lowest temperature, and you also have this correct setup. I'm going to go ahead and solve this out, but while I solve this out, this is also going to be your listening clue. So as I'm subtracting these 2 things, your listening clue up by the words Warsaw, Missouri. So Warsaw, Missouri. I want you to write the letters UCM because that's actually where Miss again went to college. So by Warsaw, Missouri, you're going to write the letters really big, UCM. Also make sure for obviously your equation that we rewrite this as x equals -40. I am going to write a sentence, but again, I'm going to say it one more time. Up by the words Warsaw, Missouri, I want you to write UCM because that Warsaw is actually pretty close to Central Missouri's campus. So the lowest temperature, I know I'm kind of throwing you off here, is -40 degrees. So again, UCM up by Warsaw, Missouri. Hopefully you got that listening clue. Number 2, if you did not get that listening clue, go ahead and go back. It's okay. We want to catch that. So Cuba and Key West, Florida, they're about 145 miles apart. If the hurricane is traveling 20 kilometers per hour from Cuba, heading to the direction of Key West, how long will it take to get there? So again, go ahead and pause. I want you to try this one on your own. Define a variable, set up, solve, sentence. And again, if at any point in time, if your you-try up above, that number 1 was incorrect, go ahead and go back, fix it, rewatch. Maybe you can hear something a little bit different that second time, but again, make sure that for number 2, you're trying this on your own first. All right, pause. All right, take a look. If your variable, maybe you forgot it, make sure that you include it. We're also going to make sure that your setup is correct. Once I get this, we're going to divide by 20. So divide by 20, divide by 20. Again, I don't know 145 divided by 20 off the top of my head right away. So I'm going to go ahead and calculate this. So then I know that it's 7. So 140. I know that quickly because 7 times 2 is 14. I have a remainder of 5. Again, I could get a decimal, a 0. I bring it down. I know that it goes in twice, 40. And last time, because I know this is going to end up being a nice number, I have a 0. I bring it down. 20 goes into 105 times. So what this means is x equals 7.25. Hopefully you got that right. And what that means is that it will take the hurricane 7.25 hours to get to Key West. So again, I do have that label, and obviously in our problems that we will have that complete sentence. All right, good luck on your problems.